I'm trying to get it to my screen.
There are some contracts that have to pull together.
Yeah.
So I've worked with both.
Mark, Lukman. Yeah, really sorry. We've been really struggling to get the projector working. So Carmen's going to have the presentations up hopefully on the screen for you. And what we're going to do is, yeah, they're going to
Got your glasses with you.
Is that okay with you?
But what we've made sure though is that they are being presented simultaneously on the online stream. So everybody who is able to access over the next week will see it as if you are presenting it live in the room. So I think that's the only way that we can do it given the tech challenges we've got. Feels like a half decent solution.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
Okay. Yeah, I meant to actually the interim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming to our VCSE sector locality lead participatory selection. Somebody said to me this morning how important it is to be in the room in these events, and I feel really humbled to learn that somebody in the room today has actually cycled from Shipley to West to make sure that she's in the room today and able to participate in person. So my name's Kerry, for those of you that don't know me. I'm Development Director of the VCS Alliance, and we are the VCSE infrastructure organisation that works right across Bradford District and Craven, and we act as that bridge between the system and our VCSE sector. And really our core purpose is to work in partnership with the sector to improve population health and tackle health inequalities. And we do that in three ways. One of those is about acting as a risk bearer, both for the system and also for the sector. Another way is about bringing investment into the sector. We do that largely via the system across Bradford District and Craven, but we also look for regional and national investment that we can bring to support the sector's development. And also we harness the collective power of our VCSE influence using our voice. So what is our sector telling us? How do we align that with our data so that we are sharing the insights of people in our communities and the challenges that they're facing? So a little bit of a recap from me about integrated neighbourhood health. I'm not going to labour on about this. I'm sure people have seen lots in the press over the last, well, certainly the last 24 hours. Neighbourhood health, I mean, this is not a new phenomenon or framework for the sector. We have been doing this for as long as we've existed. But this is about working together with all partners that are supporting people in communities for this way of working to become the norm rather than the exception. So how do we really work together and have a consistent framework right across our Bradford District and Craven place with the ability to act at that locality level because we understand what our communities need. And it will really be to amplify what is already being said in the 10-year plan, in the Lord Darcy's 3 shifts from hospital to community, treatment to prevention, analogue to digital, and as well as the Bradford District and Craven Health and Wellbeing strategy. All of those absolutely highlight the voluntary community and social enterprise sector as being an integral partner. Not just an equal partner, but an integral partner in meeting the needs of the population and being able to create diverse and innovative solutions to support people closer to home. Slide. So, as VCSE locality lead, just a bit of a recap. Although we are expecting in this role that people have the ability to take their organisational hat off and advocate, represent and be the voice of the sector across their locality, there is also an expectation that they will come from an organisation. We're not remunerating individuals. and we are remunerating an organisation to backfill your time, experience and knowledge. Does that feel clear? Yeah, okay. So you will have seen all of the outline and the specification for the role itself, but ultimately you will be the go-to person within your locality for the sector. You'll be working with VCSE community partnerships, anchor networks, forums, grassroots organisations to gain that extensive, diverse voice and translate that at a system level and use the knowledge and insight to help strategic decision making in what I describe as the kind of enactment space, that space that is somewhere in between strategy and operations and getting things done. You'll be supporting the dissemination of feedback. So yes, it's important to get the voice of the sector and feed that into the system, but also how do we make that loop cyclical once and for all? How do we actually start to disseminate that information appropriately for our communities from the system back into our communities? As well as supporting the creation and the development of a mapping exercise. Now, I know that we go out and do this quite often and everybody wants a map of services that are out there, which is challenging, especially now because we're in a precarious position as a sector. But this is really about having a look a little deeper about what is it that those organisations are doing. So not just where they are, but what are they doing and how can we bring that together to really start to build a visible structure of what the sector looks like in each locality and how they can meet the agendas around strategic commissioning. We talked at the roadshows about what that might mean in terms of universal proportionalism, in terms of population health, etc. So really starting to have a look at how the sector across your locality feeds into all of that work and tons more. So this is going to be a little bit difficult for people in the room because of our technical challenges, but you will see that our governance chart has slightly changed from when we presented that at the roadshow events. And what you'll see just off the partnership and partnership oversight executive are 4 additional bodies that feed in. So we've got the local authority, have been named as that, the Children's Trust, we've got the Integrated Collaboration Committee, which is really that group between all of the 3 trusts that are coming together to work more efficiently and effectively and have a united voice, as well as the GP Alliance and the VCS Alliance. So the GP Alliance, they are currently also organising themselves in the same way as we are in our VCSE sector. And the VCS Alliance, and of course Sam Keithley as our sector lead, has a seat in that decision-making group. She also sits within the Collaboration Programme Board. And then underneath that, we've got our Integrated Acute Care Delivery Group, which is that hospital to community. How do we get people from acute services closer to home? I'm the representative for our place on that board. And then we've got our Integrated Neighbourhood Health and Care Delivery Group. I am also the representative for the sector on that. We are commissioned to have those seats, as well as Helen Davey, who is our mental health representative in that place as well. Underneath that, if I can call it, or around the sides, are these 6 locality leads. And really this is about developing that team and that accountability structure so that I can be held to account, and also we can start to really look at the interface between those boards and what's happening out in communities. And then partnerships, and of course we have our 13 community anchor roles. So really integral that this locality lead has the ability to connect in and is working really closely with their community partnership anchors and me. Slide, please. Okay, so here is what's going to happen now. We will invite candidates up to present. We've got 5 minutes for a presentation. And then we've got up to 10 minutes for questions and answers. We have found, this is our 5th event this week, and we have found such rich questioning from our sector, which has really, I think, brought to life the presentations that we've seen. So I'd really encourage you to do that in the room today. What I'm going to ask you to consider as you're listening to the presentations are 2 things. The first is, what has impressed you about the candidate and why? And the second is, what are the areas of development that you might suggest for that person? Now, these 2 things are really important to acknowledge because there will be an online voting system. Hello, welcome. There'll be an online voting system, and we do have some pieces of paper where you can make your vote in person should you need to, and we can log that for you online. But what's really important for us is this is a large-scale recruitment process, and in any recruitment process you would expect to receive feedback for putting yourselves forward, and we've had 19 candidates from across the place that have been brave enough to put themselves forward in this particular process. So it's really important to us that every single person who has taken the time out to put themselves forward has something, whether they are successful or not, that will support their development and gives them solid feedback. The other important thing to note is that we have designed the feedback structure so that if you are unable to cast a vote unless you submit feedback. That's how important it is to us. Okay. Next slide, please. I will act as timekeeper. So I will stand at the back of the room. I will give you a bit of a wave when you've got 1 minute to go. And I know that in other areas, and I can see it today, we've got multiple people from maybe one organisation. So I just want to acknowledge that one organisation receives 1 vote, not multiple people, one organisation, 1 vote per locality. So each organisation can cast a vote right across our 6 places. And the sector have asked us for this because, yes, this is a programme or a portfolio of work that is absolutely kind of rooted and based in geography, but we know that many of our sector organisations work thematically, they work across the district with communities of interest, with inclusion groups. And so it's really important that we enable the entirety of the sector to have their say. Okay, so we're live streaming on YouTube. We have an online room that is going. We've got people in person. So James will be having a look at questions from our online room if there are any. Yes.
Right, it's just a question. I don't know that I misunderstood this. So do we get a vote per locality? We say like Bradford West, we get a vote.
Yes.
Do we get a vote cheaply?
Yes.
I switched over that, but just wondering what constituency.
And I think had we not have listened to the sector, and there are really only a relatively small proportion, probably a third of our sector are just specifically focused on a geography. The rest of our sector are working right across the district and maybe, are working in one part of a locality, but because of the nature of what they want to do, they might want to move because perhaps we have a transient community that are now settled in a certain place. And so we want to make sure that we're open and we're flexible to meet the needs of the entire sector. So yes, you will have, as your organisation, 1 vote per locality. So you can cast 6. And I'll tell you a bit more about the timescales of that and stuff when we've heard the presentations. Feel all right? Yeah. Okay, so first up, I'm going to invite Lukman. And Lukman is an experienced community leader and manager of Beep Community Partnership in Bradford. He has over 20 years experience in local councils and in the voluntary sector. He serves on the Health and Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which has really strengthened his understanding of the challenges in integrating health and social care. His work is about building partnerships with local authorities, funders and grassroots groups to tackle health inequalities and social issues such as housing, employment and isolation. Overcoming fragmented services have been a key challenge and have absolutely reinforced Lukman's commitment to integrating neighbourhood health and creating inclusive, resilient communities. So welcome, Lukman.
I'm here as well if you can, if that's what you can see. Sorry.
Okay, you see me? Yeah, hello, thank you very much for inviting me here for the locality lead for Bradford West. Really appreciate that. Just a bit of history. I grew up in Girlington. I used to live across the road. I used to come here. I used to see all the services that were out there. It could be health, it could be education, it could be employment, but they were always in sort of like in certain offices, but not in the community. And I feel really privileged to hear that it's coming in the community. At the Community Partnership, we work with a lot of the partners out in the statutory sector, and they have to come into the community. So our BEEP, we have job centre coming into our centre to tackle youth unemployment. They're out there to come in the community to help these people rather than being isolated. And it's so encouraging to see the health authority doing exactly the same thing, because to actually make real change, you need to have people on the ground that are actually developing the process of what their needs are, the mapping exercise with the community. Now, as a locality lead, I feel that people will have a voice to make changes. And one thing that I bring is partnership. I think partnership is very important, and to bring strong partnership within the community sector is very important. But we need someone very strong to actually go there and advocate for that community, to say, basically, look, this is what the community want. And sometimes it's important to be very inclusive, get all the community together and have their voices. We need to look at communities within communities. And how do we do that? Well, when we have certain fundings, could we fund every group? Sometimes that's impossible. What we need to do is build partnership between groups so we can deliver and actually reach them group rather than isolating them. Just an example of isolation is, I'm a trustee of Cancer Support Yorkshire, and just recently a close friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer, and I thought, oh my God, where does he go? But because I'm on a board now that deal with cancer, one of their strategies is to come in the community. So we've actually written a strategy now for the Cancer Support Yorkshire to come in the community to actually support these people. Where do they go? What advice they need? Is there any benefits they go to? How they could share that with the community? How to experience that? So I think that is not available currently, but hopefully that will be available in the very near future with the strategy that we put together. I feel the locality needs to be within a framework where they could generally make changes, because when you're collaborating with people in the community will say, what's happened, what have you done? I think the locality lead will actually take them issues forward and actually feed them back within the community. I think that can create harmony within that sector, and people will see that it's actually working. Finally, I feel as if I could represent most of the community within Bradford West, because I have that knowledge. I've worked within the sector, I've worked in the local government as well as the voluntary sector. A number of years ago, I used to manage a healthy living program, which is looking at health inequality and how to tackle health. And that was actually exactly the same situation of the locality lead, and that made a lot of difference out in the community. And people that didn't have access to health, they were kind of included, and a lot of the people found that service has really made changes within themselves and the community. Thank you very much.
I wonder if you want to stay at the front and get, just to have an opportunity to answer any questions. Do we have any questions from the room to start with?
Do you think you can ask question once, the other candidate also has anything you can ask question?
So we would normally do it where we would have those individual questions, just so that we are asking based on the presentation that you've heard, and what you might want to know more about that individual.
So my question
Yes.
is, you mentioned about partnership working. How do you kind of work with so many different smaller groups, bigger organizations, and ensure the community, different community groups are able to give the information which needs to be passed on? How would you do that?
I think
Can I just repeat that question in case we didn't hear it online? So I think, Rabina, your question is about how, based on all that you've described around partnership working, how would you work with different sized organisations to really make sure that that community voice is being heard? Does that feel right?
I think what I would do is basically organise an open day to kind of get all the groups to come in, and sometimes that doesn't work. You could send emails everywhere and you'll always find the bigger groups coming. I think you need to go one step further and actually meet the smaller groups as well, to encourage them to be part of this process, and to say that they will be included in the decision making as well, which is very important, because I think sometimes when you work in community sectors, people always feel the strong organisations at the final say, they get all the funding and everything happens around them. But what I would do is try to get the small organisation to be part of the decision making as well as delivery as well, because I think when I worked at the community partnership, we work actually with the Roma community, which is a very small community, and the only way you could help them is to encourage them to come and talk about what the issues are. And I feel when you do an open day and get people around the table and say, look, everyone's got equal say, and then that information on the locality lead needs to go to the decision-making process to say these people are included. Some organisations might not have the capacity to deliver, but they could still be a partner of that delivery as well, which I think I would put together. Hope that answered the question. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think from Kerry's introduction and from what you said, it feels like you have a lot of experience living in the local area and being involved in lots of organisations. What I'd like to hear more about is how you plan to operationalise being the lead. So I can hear that you are full support of the system change and the concept and want to encourage participation, but I want to hear more, if possible, about your plan to deliver in that role.
I think whenever you have a question to be answered, I think that support mechanism is already there with the VCSEs, and to work with that group to develop a strategy how to go in the community and how to encourage people to come in and have a strategic plan in terms of mapping exercise, in terms of community consultation. All these things need to be actually done prior. Forums need to be set up to put together to get people's voices forward. And then when people's voices are put together and put forward, what as a locality lead you're going to do with that information to actually send to the strategic sector to say, you know, this is what the concerns are, how we're going to address it. And then from that information, you bring back and you develop action plan for the community.
Thank you. I have another question.
Yeah, I'll say no problem.
The information that you hear and take it forward if it's not your priority, because I know that you're involved in organisations. How might that bias you in your awareness of what's happening?
I think the work that I do at B Just to answer the question, is very, it's in a way we're very inclusive. So it's basically one of the biggest vision that I had when I first started BEEP is to be more inclusive, to have a community centre that's not based on a particular ethnicity, like a Bangladeshi, Pakistani, English, Ukrainian, Russian. It's more about a community centre for everybody. And that's one thing that we've created for our BEEP. We have people from all communities come in. And actually utilising the services, which is freely accessible to everybody in the community, and they feel as if it's their community. And I think that community harmony is very, very important, really. And that's what I would bring out to the community to say, well, look, you know, I'm not here just for one person. I'm not here for my community centre. I'm here for Bradford West, and I will represent the concerns for Bradford West. And I think that is very important. So for our meeting, it would be mainly about Bradford West and how we better that area rather than the community centre. The community centre or BEEP will be used as a platform to actually bring people in to say, yeah, we're an organisation that actually delivers, and we're an organisation that are impartial. We're an organisation that wants to hear people's voice and actually deliver the actions that the community want.
My final question is,
Yeah.
how well do you feel that you are known by other organisations rather than the people you support?
Well, because I've worked, I'll say, in the voluntary sector for over 20 years, nearly all the organisations know me. I'll say Girling Community Centre is somewhere that I used to live across the road. So I used to come here and play snooker here. I'm part of, or I'm a trustee on the Wren board. I'm a treasurer on the Wren board. So we already work with a lot of organisations out in Bradford West and other kind of areas of Bradford. And it's about sharing information. I think it's important. I mean, this is a locality lead for Bradford West, but what I would do is work with all the other locality leads in different areas and take good practice from there. I said, well, that's working in Shipley. Could I take that in and develop that? Or there might be certain things that I do that maybe another area wants to do. So I think that collaboration work is very important for the initiative really to work. And I think, and I feel it will be very positive in the community.
No.
So my question, Lukman, is around what barriers or challenges might you foresee over the next year, and how might you tackle those, or what support might you need to move through them or work with them?
I think the barrier will always be whenever you put a new proposal or a new action plan in terms of the 10-year strategy from the NHS in terms of what we need to build. There'll always be them barriers, but what I have positively is something where I've already done that. I've already actually managed a health living program, which was tackling health inequality in the community. I've kind of worked in a particular decision-making board, which is the Health and Scrutiny Committee in Bradford Council, where genuine change we could make. We could question questions on accountability. So even when the NHS or the hospital comes in and says everything's going fine because we've put this intervention, that intervention in, we've spent so much money and everything's perfect. The question I would ask is basically, no, it's not. Be honest and say you don't have enough funding. Because I think sometimes when people come in, they always say everything's right. So I think it will have its teething issues, but with the planning and the collaboration with the VCSEs, I think working together, I think it should work very smoothly. And if there's any problems, there needs to be a review mechanism. So after a month to see what's worked well, what's worked not well, and how we could improve them, but then involving people within the community and the voluntary sector actually to bring their input as well. I think it's very important. And then you could shape up every month or so things kind of work very positively in the future.
And you'll be absolutely aware as treasurer at Wren that there ain't no more money. So, and that's often what we hear from staff. We have more money, you know, in the system, everything will be fine. But they're not the only barriers. So what do you think those barriers might actually be beyond money?
I think it's accessibility, safe space. I think
Yeah.
sometimes, especially women, they feel as if is it a space where they could come in and actually benefit from it. Have they got the safety element? Does the organisation have all the governance to keep people safe, especially children? I think all these things are very, very sort of like important to have in place for people to come in. And the other big thing that I've always felt, and I always say, being sort of like the second generation person is the language barrier. And I think the issues that my parents and uncles had in terms of language barrier, it still exists today. And we can't forget that because there's new communities that have come in from Eastern European. We've got communities that come from the Roman community and other communities that have come in, and we still need to support them in terms of the language barrier. I think that's really, really important as well. So it's actually going out in the community. And just to give you an example of BEEP, I think sometimes what people do, and this is the experience I would bring to the locality, is sometimes people are not, they're reactive to funding, where basically the funding there, I don't know anything about advice, but I'm applying for it because there's money there. So our BEEP were very proactive, and what we try to do is try to do a mapping exercise within the community or within the locality to find out what generally the needs are of the people in the community. So I could say as a manager, we need this, we need that, we need that. That doesn't always work. We need to go out in the community and do that mapping exercise, and that's what we do at BEEP to find out, well, there's a need of digital inclusion. How do we now access or speak to the people in the council to bring that in the community? And I had a meeting yesterday with the Assistant High Commissioner of Bangladesh, and one thing that I discussed with him, apart from a number of other things, was digital inclusion, because a lot of application from Bangladesh needs to be online, like the ID cards, the Bangladeshi passports. And because now we've got the digital inclusion of the computers in our centre, we could actually work together to actually bring that service where people don't have access to computers. They come to the centre one day a week and we can fill them application with support of volunteers. I think volunteers are very important, and they're the community champions that will support the people in the community. There's one thing that I just wanted to say about funding as well, which I always feel really important. I think funding is something that's out there, and people say there's no money. What do we do? I think it's important to look at how do we create sustainability? How do we empower people so it doesn't cost any money? And I could give you an example when I was working at Manningham Health Living Initiative, which was tackling youth health inequalities, and we developed a program that is still running today. So it's to encourage people to walk. And initially we started the program where we used to have it at Lister Park. People used to have a bottle of water. We had the pedometers and they used to walk around the park. Today, that's self-sufficient. You see so many Asian women in salwar kameez, in burqas, in shorts, and they're basically walking, and it doesn't cost you any money. And that is tackling health inequalities or health benefits without any money. So I think these are things that we need to look forward to, and not always think that we need money for everything. It's all about prevention. So another example, because we work with kids on a very young age. So on a Saturday, we get over 300 children, and we look at prevention. So if we could work with young kids about, I don't know, with sports, they build up their life skills. They get along with people in different communities. They don't swear, they don't fight. They be educated about antisocial behaviour, things about gangs. So later on in life, they become better human beings. So we're not tackling them later on when they're youth, and that's really difficult to change their perception. So if you could change the perception, and that could be with healthy eating as well. So if you could teach a child to not have fast food, and what they will do, they'll go home and say, well, Dad, we don't want fast food today, could we have some? So I think these are things that are really important, how you could uplift a generation. So what we do at BEEP, we would try to filter that out in different communities within Bradford West as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, next up, I'm going to introduce Mark Nicholson, who absolutely recognises the importance and value of sector voice, leading to collaborative working that co-design and producing innovative approaches and solutions for all of the challenges that are facing our communities. and with the VCSE being an integral part of that process. He recognises that integrated neighbourhood health requires building cross-sector relationships and that buy-in, and that those challenges that arise and those conflicting priorities, insufficient resources, poor information sharing, and that really complex task of redefining our approach. He sees a really significant seed change and has experienced that through community partnership networks and the inclusion of the sector as a whole. He recognises the challenges around integration and focuses truly on community and patient need rather than creating siloed and less impactful services. Mark.
Thank you. So I'm Mark Nicholson. I'm not very good at selling myself because I don't often use the word I, it's we, it's us and it's together. So I based my presentation around the questions that we were posed as, you know, of becoming the lead for Bradford West. So my experience in terms of being involved in the sector is over 35 years of working in deprived communities within Barnsley, within Bradford, and also within Hull. For the last 14 years, I've had the privilege and honour to work and be the lead for Equality Together, which is a disabled people user-led organisation. And for the last 7 years of developing in collaboration with our community, a place-based organisation at Manningham Mills Community Hub. I've got very much a strong ethos and approach of working in partnership and collaboratively. And my experience across the district, and especially in Bradford West, is about how we can work and join together and be the power of a united, strong VCS force. That's been very much within health inequalities and population health-based initiatives, interventions and services. We've also had the pleasure through that sort of process of being able to lead in terms of various partnerships and consortia, very much within self-advocacy, within co-production, within voice, especially the voice of lived experience, as well as the sector and welfare advice. The approach is very much in terms of how we've been able to engage and how become part and parcel of the system through the Community Anchor network, where we're the core community anchor with Girlington for CP4. Very much in bringing people together and organisations together in relation to developing co-production approach within disabled people and vulnerable adults, working with health and social care colleagues of creating this co-production partnership for Bradford and District, which is 83 organisations involved in that process and over 300 individuals that are regularly involved in that process. By that sort of approach, then being tasked in terms of bringing organisation to develop a voice advocates programme for individuals with lived experience, but really ensuring in terms of being able to enable and develop and support them to have full choice and control, either as a citizen, but also involved as a community of interest. Making connections is the most important part of this, and I've had the privilege over the last 4 or 5 years to be part of the Making Connections in West, which is a multi-agency based approach of statutory and VCS organisations. And a lot of that's been the result of the development of the wellbeing network across our district and that multi-agency based approach. And previously, I had the privilege through the old Bradford Assembly of being the co-chair for the Equalities Forum for a number of years. Next slide, please. Everything really comes down to ethos and values. It's about building relationships and developing trust. It's a journey together. It's about that commitment to partnership and collaborative working and being realistic that it's about collaboration and not competition. Within Bradford West over the last 3 years, we've tried to bring place-based organisations together to working collaborative, looking at how we can maximise our resources, how we could look in terms of potentially developing and working together to really class sustainability more of a realistic consortia-based approach. But more importantly, it's about the strength and the power of our sector voice and how we are able to amplify and as a lead, that sort of privilege to advocate on behalf of our sector. We know that health inequalities and population health is a major issue across Bradford West, and we have got wonderful organisations within our sector, whether they're large, small or grassroots organisation, and it's that opportunity to bring them more inclusively together. Maybe looking in terms of doing that more in terms of thematic based work as well as more globally. But it's also the importance of shared vision and values for us as a sector. But more importantly, the sector's learned how to be adaptable, and adaptability is the most important part of this role in terms of how it's going to be able to meet the needs of our sector. Next slide, please. So what I would do as a locality lead within Bradford West is engage within our community anchor networks. We're looking in terms of our VCSE organisation, but more importantly, to listen and to learn and to gain a greater understanding of the sector and how diverse our sector is across Bradford West. It's about creating a two-way information flow between our sector and the integrated neighbourhood health team and the wider system. And as I said earlier, it's not about cascading up, it's also cascading back, and that's more important for our organisations. I think jointly with our community anchors and obviously with our VCS organisations, it's about identifying and discuss perceived barriers about working collaboratively. And that's something that we need to address and to explore in terms of how we move our system forward. Next slide, please. Everything that I've looked at is very much in terms of being based against the job description. I'm totally passionate about our sector and having a place at the table and a rightful place at the table within system to be heard and to be valued. But more importantly, it's an inclusive voice, not a singular voice. And when coming to that table, we're coming with the power and strength together. Obviously, through my career, I've been able to advocate on a number of opportunities on behalf of the sector, and especially in terms of communities of interest. It is about developing and supporting the voice of individuals in our communities. But more importantly, it's about how we can collaboratively be part of a multidisciplinary team for Bradford West and how that can add value to our organisation, our communities and our citizens. And I think I'm going to finish there if that's okay.
Brilliant, thanks.
I know that how important it is for that when to present the voice of our community. With the organization, small organizations, small and good. For me, it's very important, and I'm not saying that we don't do it. How would you ensure that your personal attachment to language and together is put aside and the focus is on all the community around?
Okay, can I ask that?
Repeat that question again?
Please,
Okay, so I think the question, Rina, correct me if I'm wrong again, you're talking about lots of different organisations in the sector right across the district, right across the locality, and how would Merck actually take that organisational
I think that it's about really taking yourself away from that perspective of our opportunity and our communities. I think that our commitment as a sector is a network of networks, and it's how we can look in terms of providing those pathways and those approach into other organisations and about developing those relationships and that trust. And over the last 2 years, I've tried to do that by participating, particularly across Bradford West, to bring organisations together to make sure that all our marginalised communities, our place-based organisations are there. That voice is strong and it's united. And it's not been easy. And I will be honest with you. And I think that the one thing within this process is it's going to be a learning curve, but the ability to listen and to learn and to gain that understanding, that approach, develop them relationships. I think over time we will do it, but the separation is vital and important.
I was particularly interested in your plan to develop trust, to listen and to learn. That was really clear. Can you talk more about how you will do that? So I'm interested in an outline plan on how you will operationalise that in the next 6 months.
Okay, I think the first part is we've got to really turn to look how we engage. So the engagement events isn't about people, for me, coming to Manningham Mills. It's about me going out there into the communities, into the place-based activities and bringing localised groups and organisations together. I think that the mapping is really important in looking in terms of the breadth and range in terms of organisations, in terms of their specialisms, their focus, so that we've got a really good opportunity of knowing when but again, I think by doing that type of approach, and then it's the networks of networks, and I think this is the thing that we know that we're going. It's hard to get people to meetings. I think we've got to make sure that we are that person. It's going to be a lot of going out there and getting known, and my priority within that sort of role is to do that. Having the time to do that as well, which is something which I think is good within this sort of process, being able to backfill and take that step forward. The mapping evidence, I think, would very much look in terms of priorities, and then that can obviously look more in terms of how we would action plan, because the action plan has to be for Bradford West. So the ownership has to be across our network of organisations within that sort of process. So that co-design, co-produced approach, I think, would be my priority as we would move forward within the first 6 months. So to know that we are not reactive or responsive, we're being proactive, and as things come out, we know that we've got those organisations coming into play. We know we've got skilled practitioner organisations across our patch. What can we do within it? Obviously, we were one of the first organisations we ran to run the Community Champions programme through COVID about vaccination programmes. Again, as things are coming through within population health, is then utilising those opportunities of bringing organisations through. We've got a very strong network of organisations in very discipline-based approaches, which I think will make life a little bit more easier to do that. Yeah. Good questions. Good questions.
So I'm going to ask a question, Mark, about Bradford West is quite a vast geography. So, of course, a large proportion of Bradford West are acknowledged in our bottom IMD areas. And, of course, we've got a really diverse range of marginalised groups and racialised groups. How are you going to bring those voices to a system where we've had systemic challenges at people in our communities accessing services? How might you bring those voices in a way that can be heard?
Okay, I think that's a very, very good point. And I think if we look in terms of the last 3 or 4 years in particular, we've come out of COVID. I think we've seen far more creativity and innovative approaches in terms of engaging and utilising those opportunities to bring voice forward. I think, as I was saying earlier, we are very much reliant on our place-based organisations, which are all anchors in their own right, with their own intricate networks of organisations. And I think it's about approach of working with to develop those relationships, but more importantly, to develop that trust in terms of how their voice, their issues are coming forward, but also that response, that two-way flow back within those sort of processes. I think that we came to a point pre-COVID that we were fed up being consulted, and the sector and our communities are very much about how can we work collaboratively. I think we've engaged a lot more in terms of our approaching co-design and co-production. And it's about ensuring that when we're looking within certain areas, that those voices are very much sat around that table to be part of that process of developing and shaping, but also providing that quality assurance and that challenge which is needed from our communities back into system as well. I think it will be an interesting journey for whoever gets the role in terms of how we move forward. There are barriers. There certainly are barriers, and collaboration, I think, is something where people say, well, is it collaboration that benefit will go to the larger organisation, or is it true collaboration? And I think that's how how we really tell that story and make it really real in terms of we're sharing power, we're sharing equity within that sort of process. And it's the organisation to come forward, which would then benefit in terms of delivery and, more importantly, how we support our residents. But I think it's going to be an interesting journey for Bradford West. It really is. From my perspective of being in Manningham and supporting Manningham Heater and Tower in many ways with Manningham as community hub, it's took us 3 or 4 years to build that trust with our communities, and now our communities are telling us how we need to adapt and deliver our centre. We have a stakeholder group of local residents which are now driving the development of Manningham Mills Community Hub, but it is about developing trust.
So you're talking about voluntary sector, you're presenting voluntary sector.
Yeah.
I just a question about, about our GPs and other services which are within the health system. How do we take our community voice in terms of issues of lack of appropriate level of service and support from the medical system? How would you do that? Because I don't know whether that will be a role, I don't know, but the way I see it, one of the reasons the voluntary sector role is so important, supporting people, because the medical model doesn't work all the time for the community. And how would we raise that kind of within the system?
That's a really good point, Rabina. I think there's examples of that. I mean, I think systems now realising that a lot of services need to be delivered in community settings. You know, when we look in terms of vaccination programmes, we look in terms of other forms of health checks. I think there's an energy now for that to happen, because obviously the increase in terms of issues, you know, we've got one of the, a decreasing rate of life expectancy here in the district. So again, I think health has seen that there's opportunities of working with our sector. But also, I think it's being honest about how we sit at the table as well, and how we bring things forward through our community partnership networks is one thing, but also how we work more integrally with GPs. For example, the Wellbeing Hub, and obviously my organisation has the privilege of being for Bradford West at Manningham, that has taken time to develop those relationships, because some things within health were very much, how long is this going to be? Are we going to develop a referral pathway and then you've disappeared? So we've had to really prove that our longevity and realistically what we can deliver and what we deliver well. And those relationships have developed. That's then seen some, I think, change in terms of not only referrals coming in, but also the opportunities of working with. But I think it's about us and how we take our message forward. You know, to have vaccination programs in our centre was really good. We, the blood pressure checks. We had a thing in relation to hepatitis C over the last few months. Again, the more that we can bring in, the more we can show our place and our value at that chair, at that table. But it's not just about the locality lead, it's the sector. Utilise us. Let's bring population health into our local population. Go ahead.
So effectively, you're funded a day a week, aren't you?
Yeah.
How are you at managing stress?
I'm-
Quite a lot of us. With all the best will in the world to get out there in the community,
Yeah.
to build trust,
Yeah.
to record what our priorities are, to feed that back for you, to feed information to us.
Yeah.
It's a tall order, and I'm hearing high aspirations from both of you. Just as I would be forced, I think.
Yeah.
Big responsibility. Talk to me about how you feel it's going to go.
I think managing stress is interesting, and I think with any of our roles at the moment, stress is a thing that we work with every day. You know, I've had the privilege of being a chief exec now for 18 years, and stress has always worked with me. By coming here into Bradford, my role was always about how we would take the voice of disabled people with lived experience, their voice forward into the system, and that's something that I've done on a regular basis. I think it has to be about being realistic and setting realistic sort of goals and actions of how we can move forward. You know, we're going to have to mobilise, we're going to have to develop that strength and that opportunity. Being able to backfill some of my responsibilities within my own organisation will provide the opportunity to get out and about. And I'm quite lucky because of the role that I have as chief exec. That's not just a Friday or I can make that work how it would need to be, and then I would mobilise our resources internally to make sure we can deliver our business. But I agree, it is a stressful time for us all. But I also think within this sort of process of developing the relationships and the trust, there's peer support. You know, I very much a part of the leaders network within the district from its infancy. I've always gone to the meetings. I go to anything that we can, because 9 times out of 10, it's not only about the information that we're going to gather and we disseminate out. We also develop our relationships, our trust, and our support for each other. You know, for 14 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Rubina, and we've worked collaboratively together, Girlington, mapping and equality together. But there's more than that. It's that ability when that time is hard or that stress gets to a point, you've somebody that can just listen.
Sorry, I was a bit tongue in cheek with the stress. I just meant there's a lot of voices.
No, I'm totally, no, but there is a lot of voices. You know, I mean, there's going to be a lot of voices. With 4,000 organisations across the district, and in Bradford West, we have a lot. But I shut it down.
Yeah, in a way, and the responsibility, because you're really commissioning these people to do the work, so you are responsible for their well-being first.
Oh, I'm getting the finger point from Rubina. It's time for me to come in then. Absolutely, and I was going to come in. Part of what the VCS Alliance will be doing is allocating a relationship manager to work alongside any successful candidate. And in Bradford West, it's James. As well as there being that support network of the 6 roles. That will very much be a team that I will be working with as a collective. We will be delving into some psychometric testing and a framework called Luminous Spark that we use at the Alliance, which is very much about understanding our strengths and our preferences in how we operate, but most importantly, how to use those in times of stress, perhaps, or challenge, and also how to use that effectively to influence and acknowledging the wider piece. In addition to that, I don't know if you saw in the press yesterday, Bradford and Craven have been successful in securing one of the national pilots for integrated neighbourhood health. So there will be some additional kind of system resource and support wrapping around those localities. But really good point, and it's not that's the second time that we've had a question actually around health and wellbeing and the Alliance's role. So thank you for bringing that today. Yeah.
Something for you.
For me, yeah, go for it.
It's from what I've read, it's for a year, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but when I see things for you, so I'm going to speak more because
Here
you start stuff, you know, and I've seen I've been in the sector for the last 25, 30 years, voluntary and dedicated capacity. So what, unless I've missed it somewhere, what is the plan? Or is there year 2, is there year 3, or what's, I mean, is this just a test and trial or?
At the moment, there is no plan. What we know is, so the funding for this particular role, I have matched from different pots to create this. It wasn't this is what you need to go and do. We know and we recognise at the Alliance the importance of this role in this strategic direction. And so we've only been able to put this in for a year to really test bed because whilst we're doing this as a sector, the rest of the system in their respective parts are doing this too. So I think there's a bit of trial and error. We also acknowledge that different localities are at different maturities and have, you know, Bradford West, we've got the big meets, which are really successful. So actually there's already a really buoyant framework that people are tapping into. I think the challenge over the next year and for us to get this right as a system, as a combined system, is to develop that consistent approach right across, but also having that flexibility to act at that locality layer. I'm already planning what year 2 and year 3 might look like, and we don't know where we're going. I guess, you know, we're only, what is it now, about 8 weeks since the 10-year plan came out. The local strategy has only just been kind of finalised. We just yesterday had the pilot position. So there's there has been lots of uncertainty, but I think given now that things are starting to build and layer, we've got much more of an opportunity. And we've talked today, haven't we? Both presentations have talked about sustainability, and actually part of that's on us too, about how are we once and for all going to get ourselves organised and do this potentially in a different way, recognising that the system needs us to do that. So I guess in answer, there's no great plan, but I am looking at what next, as well as what we have, the job that we've got to do right now. But I hear you, you know, that year on year cycle, it's frustrating for the sector, absolutely. And we can teach the system a lot about how to respond to that.
Thank you.
Well done, thank you. Okay, so now we go to voting. There is a QR code, there is a Microsoft form, Teams link. We will email that out because we haven't been able to put it up. It is also will be available on the recording. We've had to design quite an intricate process and to make it equitable, equal right across our places. What we have designed is that each locality voting will be open for 1 week from the point of the end of the session that we had. So Keighley will end next Monday at 12 o'clock. Craven will end next Monday at 3 o'clock. Next Tuesday will be Bradford South. Next Wednesday will be Shipley. And next Thursday we'll have East and West. So 1 week, the voting is live and open. And again, just to recap, one organisation, one vote per locality right across. Also important to note, the VCS Alliance do not have a vote in this process. Our role is to facilitate the process itself. So we get to next Thursday. We'll collate all of our information from our places. And then next Friday, the 19th of September, we will inform all candidates of the outcome of each locality. The following week, we will make that public. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? I'm just double checking with Jess, just in case. My request to you is to make sure that the organisations that you work alongside know about this, that they are also getting their votes in right across the district. So that's my call to action for you and all of your network or network of networks. You know, get the sector involved. This is such an incredible opportunity, I think. Next slide.
So,
Oh, the
Fair
next
enough.
slide is just
Yeah.
thank yous and travel safely. But are there any questions for me, Rabina? Let's keep me on my toes.
So people who are voting are entitled to vote, but the criteria for that. How do you recognize those organizations or groups? What's the criteria?
So on the form, when you go into the form, you will have all of the candidates listed for each locality. There's the 6, yeah? So when you go on to that, you have to submit your feedback, what's impressed you, why. So that lets us know that they've watched and or were in the room. So they've participated, hence participatory selection. They've participated somewhat in the process. So you put your feedback in and then what development opportunities there might be. Then you have in some places, it's choosing the candidate that you are pledging your vote for, and you have to put your organisation's name in there. And if we have multiple for one locality for that organisation, we will be contacting you next Thursday to say which one is it.
I'm still not clear.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. The locality where we haven't attended the discussion of presentation.
So
How would you vote those?
all of the presentations are available online. All of them.
So you have to see what them.
You have to watch them and you have to give your feedback to get your Girlington vote, Rabina. Yeah.
So any organization, volunteer organization, can go and watch
Yes.
and vote.
Yes.
There's no criteria for that.
There's no criteria. It's
If
about
any volunteer organization, any volunteer group can go.
absolutely. It is. We want as much and the diversity of the sector to input into this process, because these will be the 6 roles that are advocating on your behalf as a sector within that kind of, as I described it, that enactment layer of the system. Absolutely.
So there's a lot of small groups, big groups, a lot of organizations.
Yeah.
So any can go with their name, watch these, give the feedback and vote.
Yes. I mean, there'll be if we don't recognise the organisations, we're going to check them out and make sure that they're a legitimate organisation. But yes.
Provide your email to vote as well. So we're presuming that you'll have an organisation email. But if we start getting ones with random emails that don't go anywhere and we've never heard of the organisation, we can't find them, then we might start questioning.
Yeah, it's not a personal vote.
The example you gave, you may have some small group
Yes.
who may not have the email.
Yeah.
How would you deal with that?
We'll contact them first.
Because I know some small groups somewhere.
As long as they have an email to give us, you know, it can be a Gmail. We're not going to discount the vote if they don't have an organisational, you know, at Girlington email. We won't discount them, but we will just probably check if we don't recognise them and we can't find their organisation online.
We will be verifying them. Yes, because it's really important to us that it's not an individual voice. It is who is it that your organisation is casting a vote to represent.
Yes.
You know, part of them. Yeah.
Making sure people who may not have the voice in the bigger organization are able to vote, but whether they have an organization or group, that needs to be verified.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that makes total sense.
So you have to watch on the.
You've got to watch everybody's presentations, Rabina. Watch them whilst you're doing your admin, because I know how much you love doing admin.
Okay. And I think people I like going and seeing people rather than doing like.
I know. And if you don't want to submit your application online, contact us, one of us at the Alliance, and we will, submit that on your behalf. If you want to do it verbally or in writing, that's okay too. And that's another reason to give us that week as well. It has been an incredibly complicated process, both in terms of the tech and in terms of the voting process. But the intention was it to respond to the inclusivity that we were being tasked with. And I think, although we've had tech issues, different tech issues at each event, I think we've managed to pull off a relatively inclusive process. But it has to end somewhere, so that's why it's just a 1 week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Travel well.
Can I ask, because there was a presumption that we could get the QR code and the links up and that we could talk to people to help them vote that, so I can email you afterwards if you would like the details for voting, if you could just add your emails to this in registration.
I think we've probably got them all, but.
We probably have them somewhere, but it does make it.
Great. Super, thank you.
You know, all the popcorns have been there.
I forgot to give out the popcorn. Because we didn't have the Rabina brought popcorn for the presentation.
I still be giving that.
It probably makes the recording better.
Is that so you can do
Where's this afternoon's meeting? Centre?
Women's zone.
Women's zone.